Fantastic. Well, listen, we have never done this live before, quite frankly. So this could be a complete failure. So we'll address that as we go. But my name is Chris Lockhart. This is a podcast that we've been doing for quite some time, video podcast. It's called Consultants Saying Things. I'm joined in person by my wonderful co-hosts. We have Whynde, who I believe a lot of people know, and we have Oliver Cronk. We also have our other cast member, Phil Yanov. We have little Phil up here. Normally, he's a giant head behind us on the screen. He's a tiny little head up there on the side over there today. So we have small Phil up on the screen. It's wonderful to be here. We are here at Capgemini in London. It is, 1:35 British summertime. Do I have that right, Ollie? Excellent. So that is 8:35 Eastern Standard Time. Good morning to everyone on the East Coast. Hope you have your coffee. One of the things listen, if you're at a business and technology conference anytime lately, the number one topic, of course, is AI. That is what everyone is talking about. One of the things that I think makes our show a little bit interesting is we sometimes take a bit of a contrarian tone on some of these things. I want to take a little bit of a different perspective today. Today, we want to talk about decisions that AI cannot make for you or on your behalf. And I'll start off with a little anecdote because this was kind of interesting to me. I woke up this morning and I went to Grok and I said, how do I get to the Capgemini headquarters? What's the best way? It said, well, you walk and you go this way and that way and you can get over there. I immediately ordered a cab. As Oliver knows, I do not like to walk. And in that moment, I thought, that's kind of interesting. The best way to get here, which AI advised me, was to walk. I chose, on the other hand, to take a cab. Human context piece of that, i.e. me, had a different perspective on what it meant to walk in the lovely British weather in the morning. Phil, I know you're with us here. Good morning to you. I wanted to know if you perhaps had a little bit of thought here on that context, that Chris Lockhart deciding he's going to do something different, that AI told him he should do something else. What are your thoughts on that, my friend?
I was concerned from the minute you said I pulled up Grok and asked it a question.
Fair.
So fair. Yeah.
Thank you.
And quite frankly, I like this being tiny because I feel like I'm your conscience and I'm just about the right size.
Love it.
For this screen.
Right. Are you on the right shoulder though, or which shoulder are you on?
It's whichever one you feed the most. Clearly, I'm eating well. So here's the thing in that bit, right? Yeah, we're going to ask it, but today, right? These models are only so smart. Their learning is jagged, and yeah, we're going to make decisions for ourselves. And here's right now, Chris, we feel pretty good about that because the decisions are good enough that the decisions are in fact jagged enough. Their understanding is imperfect, and we're going to go, oh, I'm the smarter one here. What's going to happen when you go? And it's like when you asked Grok, heaven forfend, but when you ask Grok about this and it says, well, Chris, if you were the athletic type, I would get you to walk out there, but I know you, so I've already called the Uber. It's got you going.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's one of those things, right? Because there's this whole bit, Oliver, about like agency, right? And the whole idea of AI doing things on our behalf, doing things for us that we ask it to do, but we may or may not take its answers as either something we can trust or something that we want to give over to it, right?
Yeah, and I think, look, I don't want to pick on anyone this morning, but there is a lot of language that we need to be really careful with, right? We are using a lot of human labels, human traits like learning, intelligent, reasoning, right? I think we need to, as architects in the room, we need to be really careful we aren't being hoodwinked, right? Because this technology is probably one of the first technologies that can sell itself and pretend it can do things that can it really. So I think we just need to bear that in mind. I'm not a Luddite by any means. I'm a big technologist, but I think we do need to kind of be that it depends voice in the room, right? And so yeah, a word of caution on some of this, because I think it's very easy to kind of be convinced by some of this technology. And I think we just need to be cautious.
Yeah, and Whynde, one of the things I'm always interested, right, is sort of being the going against the grain of what the thing is telling me to do, right? I frequently, get in the Tesla, put in the destination, and it's like, go this way. And I'm like, hell no, I'm going this way, right? And sure enough, it was actually right. There was traffic the other way. So I'm kind of interested in sort of your take on this ability for us to make our own decisions based on the results that come out of this, because let's be honest, it really is only going to give us a good enough answer by what we put into it, right?
I actually really like the simple example you gave because it's so obvious. You know, your context of overriding it because you don't want to walk, right? Because it's obviously a lot more blurred and slippery on more complex things, like you're saying, Oliver, or this convenience factor of just going along and following it. So it's like I feel like there are simpler things where if you take the wrong route, like so what, then maybe it's a little bit more of an adventure. But I think it's when things get more important, then we have to start to say, what's my trigger point, right? To not just go with the answer, but to actually stop and make sure I'm making the decision when it's value based or requires a trade off.
Yeah, you're right. My lack of exercise is not going to result in the end of a business or something, right? That's that sort of thing. But well, it may. Who knows? But Phil, one of the things I know we talked a little bit about this is how do I get to a point where I can begin to trust the answers that are coming out of this and know, for example, this morning that the right thing to do was to walk, as an example, right? It seems like I would need to know maybe some context that I need to put into a prompt or something in order to get the right answer out, something that I can validate and something that I could trust. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, we're at that mode now, right? We're just having these things iterate actually gets us better answers much of the time, right? You can almost always, if you get a kind of an iffy answer back, say, just simply try harder and actually get a better answer the second time, right? And it's sad that that actually works. And it also works with my kids sometimes. But the point is that you can roll through this and try it multiple times. But I don't think that's particularly complicated in that we're going to build trust the same way we might do with a junior team member. We're going to ask questions, and as we get wrong answers, we're going to say, "Are you sure? How did you get to that? What's the evidence for that?" We're going to ask clarifying questions, and eventually it gets better, I presume. And the thing is, these models are moving so quickly that maybe they get better in a way that we can use them, right?
Well, and guys, do we get to a point where maybe there's, it's one thing to just sort of have which direction should I go? But if I'm asking really meaningful questions, is there maybe a moral trade-off, or are there some questions around that, Oliver?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely, and this evolves over time, right? As Phil was just saying, these models are changing and getting better and being able to do things that they couldn't do before. So I think it's like, a great example of this is you wouldn't have a human in the loop on recommending you a film on Netflix, right? We used to call that AI. We now don't really call it AI, but it was, and it is really. Yet there are other things where the friction of a human being really thinking something through, and I've been having discussions with my peers around this, around what do we call this thing, that the human essence, the human taste, the human care. What is it? The intuition. What is it that we're kind of the capability that humans bring to the table that we really need to sort of think critically about when we're thinking about that trade-off between full automation, full still human doing a task, and that kind of blurry middle as we kind of move things in our organizations from that manual to automated sort of journey. I think that's really critical. What is the human being bringing, and is the friction actually a useful part of the process? People might think, we can automate everything, we can make things really fast, but actually, was that human friction actually a vital part of the process in the first place?
I love that so much, Oliver. I just want to echo that. And it also feels like there's what do humans bring? We can also acknowledge there is an intuition we have. There's this amazing set of things that we do in our brains and the recognition that we have. So, it might be like a hiring decision. And yes, all the variables are checked, but we instinctively know that there's a better choice. So really hanging on to that.
Yeah, and a little bit of audience participation here, but like, how many people are, like, just show of hands, how many people have used AI of any sort today? That could be Copilot, it could be Claude, it could be anything. Okay, decent show of hands. Okay, keep your hands up. And how many people trusted the results that came out of that? Okay, still pretty good. How many people would trust it to choose your spouse or partner? Okay, all the hands.
There we go.
All the hands went down. Right, this is an interesting, right, sort of thing, right? We trust. I mean, I remember the days when it was like, I don't really trust GPS. I rely on GPS all the time. In fact, I rely on full self-driving all the time, right? A guy that said I would never give up control of my vehicle. I give up control of the vehicle all the time. I implicitly trust it. But would I go so far as to trust it with a spousal decision, right? Or those sorts of things? I don't know that I would. And I think that introduces this idea, right, that it can compute, it can automate, it can make efficient, it can make routine judgments, it can do all these sorts of things, but it's going to lack a context, which is the Chris Lockhart context, which is that little bit that's in my brain of, how do I feel today? What is my mood, right? For those of you at dinner last night, right? My mood last night was not great, right? So, those things, right? It comes into question, and I think it comes into play. Phil, I know, like when you're dealing with folks, and for those who don't know, Phil deals a lot with networking events and that sort of thing, and also hosting and emceeing various events. You're probably frequently asked this question about AI and the trust factor, and just a little thought there from you about what your feelings are around this context, this piece of this human soul, right, that goes into the decision making.
I really thought you were coming after me on this because you thought I wasn't that good at picking out spouses. So
no, all three of them have been great, Phil. So that's
why I was laughing.
I just, a swing and a miss. But yeah, I'm not too keen on the human exceptionalism part, but I know this is going to sound like we keep coming back to the same thing. But you think about, and I'm going to tie this to consulting, right? But a part of it is, I'm not asking the right question. When you say, am I going to use this to pick my spouse or to make some other load-bearing decision or something for myself, right? I mean, I think that is problematic. But part of it is we're not really asking a good enough question when we get to that part. And what I mean by that is it's a missed requirement. Like, I'm not able to say all of the things I want. I mean, you think about all the times that I've been inside of an engagement, and it's like we just never got deep enough to figure out what really was the problem they were trying to solve. Because there was the problem they were willing to admit to, and then there was the problem that was underneath, and then there was the stuff they didn't even see, right? And this kind of brings us back to this Mino's paradox bit. But I think sometimes we don't know what it is we need to ask, and that's one of the reasons we're getting bad answers.
Whynde, I love this idea of, it goes back to sort of the enterprise architecture or business architecture question that one of my mentors, Dave Baker, always asked, right? Which was, what problem are you solving? What business problem are you solving, right? By implementing this tool or solving for this technology. And I think in this particular case, there's probably a similar kind of thing at play, right? Are we asking the right question here? What problem are we asking AI to solve for us?
Of course. And, as we always say on the show, ask good questions. It's all about that. And whatever the Einstein quote is, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I would spend 59 minutes actually framing it, and then you can solve it. I think is entirely right.
Yeah, and Ollie, I don't know if you had any thoughts on like sort of this contextual thing, right? I mean, Oliver took some of us on a nice tour of Stonehenge the other day, and as opposed to doing the tour bus, drive up and pay the fee and all that sort of stuff, Oliver took us in some random back way, which you only would have. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. But this is sort of like that context, right? Because we wouldn't have found that if we hadn't asked that right question and gotten to that right place to
It's actually a really nice example in a way, because I guess Stonehenge for me is on the way to my mum's house, so I kind of see it like every fortnight, every month when I go down to Somerset to see her. So I kind of know that area quite well. But if you just use the tools and you used AI or Google Maps to give you a recommendation, it would probably say, book a ticket in advance and do this, that, and the other. And reality was that Chris was coming after the visitor centre was closed. But I happened to know that there's a byway that runs parallel to Stonehenge. And so you can literally get, legally, as a member of the public, you can walk along the footpath, and it's literally the other side of the fence where the official access is to Stonehenge. So, and it was quite a different experience, but it's that human sort of local decisioning. Now, some of that will bleed away, of course, with better data. AI could give you better recommendations, but I still think there is something here that we need to hold on to, because fundamentally, what are we doing all this for? Like, I don't believe we do the things in business entirely to build machines that are just going to talk to machines. I think fundamentally businesses are here to serve human society, and we do need to remind ourselves sometimes, I think, that the human actually in the equation is quite an important part of the situation. It's not, I don't think the goal should be to have like systems just talking to systems. I know the AI arms race is probably pushing us in that direction, but I think we should be challenging it more.
And I think intent is so important. And going back to the having AI pick your spouse, maybe it can if I gave it the right context and everything, but I wouldn't want that. Me personally, like I want the magic of that journey. And that to me is intent of what we hold on to.
Phil, are you willing to try that for the next one, or is?
I'm done. One of us goes out of this in a box. So
That's fantastic. So, all right.
Yeah.
So, we frequently talk about, trying to give practical advice to folks and consultants who are new in consulting or have been in it for a while or considering it or considering getting out of it. We often talk about them as, the cats out there, all those cats out there that are thinking about this. What is some practical stuff that we can give to these folks to say, listen, this is one way to think about AI as you take it forward and its practical usage. I don't know, Phil, did you want to take that one first or?
The thing is, this is moving so fast that, if you're in that early mid part of your career in particular, you need to be figuring out what these tools are capable of, right? And how you might be able to use them. Because, I went from, people that I'm working with have gone from they're kind of skeptical, I don't know if we're going to do this, to I'm paying Anthropic $100 or $200 a month so that I can actually do iterative coding in it. And by the way, I'm doing the work of 5 people the way I've got this thing worked out now. So I think there are lots of places you can do big things, and it is moving quickly. So I'd say you should be running experiments and hanging out with other people who are running experiments.
I mean, I'm in danger of repeating myself a little bit, but it's kind of having for your organization, your enterprise, the kind of policy and decisioning that helps you decide, what flavor of architecture is appropriate for a particular context. So I think that having almost some sort of policy or guardrails around that, I think is really, really important, because I think otherwise there's a danger we get a little bit carried away, a little bit excited. And I think, we do need that sort of critical lens to sort of sometimes just rein us in a little bit. And maybe the answer will eventually be full automation, but we just need to go baby steps our way there. But I'm also keen to kind of get to the room as well.
I want to hear what Whynde has to say real quick, and then we'll grab some questions from the audience, if there are any. I mean, who knows? We may have answered everything in 30 minutes.
Practical from an individual perspective, I think it's know your values and know the trigger points when you know that you need to make the decision. It sounds obvious when we say it right now, but the conversations get slipperier, right? Things get grayer. And when I say know your values, even just thinking about a recent conversation we had here at Cannes, as I think about like writing books, like I have certain values on what I do or don't do. There's not a right answer, but just knowing your values, I think is important. And then second, I said, if there's a serious human trade-off or a values-based, how do we interpret this situation? Well, just that has to come back to you.
No, I think that's great. Do we have questions? Grant, are you the official mic?
I am. Let's see if we have any questions in the
Questions or
room.
thoughts, comments? Nobody has
Comments
any
or
questions.
Or is there something someone thinks that AI shouldn't decide? That was, I think, one of
that's
the main
great,
things
yeah.
we're going to ask the audience.
Are we wrong?
Examples of things that AI shouldn't
There
decide.
we go.
There we
Over
go. We got
here,
one
our
over
first
here.
victim.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to reference some rules we've already got in Europe. So there's the...
Join the show. Would you like to sit? Here, have a seat. There we go. We do this 4 times a month, by the way. Are you available?
So, in Europe, there's the AI Act, and that has some very strict rules about what we can and can't do with AI. Some of that is probably correct. Some of it might be a bit difficult. I was at the Gartner conference, and the lady that helped to drive that through was there, and she said how horribly difficult it was to get consensus. So I guess the question to the room and to the panel is, given that we're going to get some rules going forward, how do we keep to our own values?
Well, that's an interesting one. Is there something from Stoicism, Phil, that I know you're deeply involved with that might serve to help answer this?
I have this much bigger question in that regard. Right?
Muted. If only
I'm not
AI
muted.
could help with,
Sold the seat.
it's Grant's fault.
I'm
actually.
here. I think it's Grant. Grant says, I'm a.
Okay, well,
Hello? Can you hear me now?
all right. Well, in the interim, I mean, I think certainly, right, there are rules, and Whynde, you kind of pointed this out, right, which is, there are going to be some, ethical and regulatory things about that can and cannot happen. And then I think there's the own personal set of internal values, right, Oliver?
Yeah, and also, look, this is where your organization is going to show up differently, right? If you are visibly, not just with words, but how you're acting in terms of how seriously you're taking responsible and ethical AI. Are you paying lip service to this, or actually are you demonstrably sometimes making difficult trade-off decisions where perhaps competitors have gone down a certain route and you're choosing another pathway because you think that's actually the more responsible, more values-aligned approach? I think that's going to be, I think everyone's saying, oh, you know, you're going to live and die at the moment around how competitive you're around AI. I do actually wonder whether it's actually, you know, your risk-reward sort of approach here, and in some cases, not being the first may be the right answer, because it may actually reward you with better brand loyalty or create a better experience for your customers. So, and that's just something slightly contrarian. I know everyone at the moment is just saying AI, but I think it's just, what do you want to be known for? Do you want to be known for enshittifying your customer experience the first?
Absolutely.
Or do you actually want to take time to kind of get the right balance?
Philip, I think we have you now.
Are you sure? Can you hear me now?
Yep, loud and clear.
Awesome. Yeah, I think in the I love the fact that we are having conversations about what is ethical and what is right. And we also have to understand, I think, that not everybody is in that conversation. So this is a tool that will outstrip some people's ethical frameworks pretty quickly. And we have to be able to, so our responsibility, even as ethical and right-minded, if we imagine such a thing, morally upright people, is to understand that not everybody next to us is going to feel the same, and we might have to defend against their thinking.
I think that's fair too, right? And that whole thing about, you know, if AI is making the decision, who's ultimately responsible? The people who created the prompt, or the tool itself, or whatever it may be, right? Quick, we have a new guest. So quick question from you.
I like what Phil's saying, because I struggle with this, and because let's take what we just talked about for a second, which was, do we want AI picking our spouse, right? Well, I've been married 44 years, and I'm thankful she
Consecutively, or?
We'll see when I get home. All right.
Continuously, yeah.
Continuously, yeah. And so the question I ask myself is, would we want AI picking our spouse? Yet 63% of all relationships today are through meetings on the internet. And so there's that difference between what we stated preference and demonstrated preference, right? And the bias that we bring in to every decision that we make. And so Seth Steven Davidwitz wrote a book, and I recommend everybody read it. And the book is Everybody Lies. And it is about data off the internet and what is actually true about the things that we think is true. And what you find out is that much of the bias that we carry is not actually true.
Yeah.
Right. It's a really good book. So I always pressure test what I'm thinking, because much of that stuff I find out when I pressure test it is me wishing it was true, or it's a bias that I have that's just not true. Not because I don't want to believe it, because it's just, that's not the demonstrated preference.
Sure, absolutely, and I think that shows up a lot of times in some of the results we get out of the tools, right? The way that we ask a question, right, to what Claude or whatever it might be, right, sometimes determines how it answers. It also, you know, if you see something blatantly incorrect, which I have several times, and it's like, that doesn't seem right at all, and it says, oh, that's right, it's not right, it's the other. Well, it's like, well, it seems like you should have caught that, but, you know, yes, I'm so sorry, I would have caught it, right? And all these sorts of things. So I think you're right. I think sometimes it's telling us not necessarily what we are really wanting to know, but maybe what we want to hear based on the way that we're asking that question.
So let's test this amongst ourselves. Maybe these language models are a reflection of ourselves. If you ask somebody something, they will tell you one of two things: A, what they think you want to hear, or B, what they want you to hear, right? One of those two things. And I always ask myself, is that what I have taught this thing to do to me?
I love that. Any other questions from online, or any other in the room? All right. Well, I mean, one other thing, I'll just wrap it up real quick. I mean, we got 5 minutes. Well, that's great. Well, we have another question.
Let's get
it up here. Come on up.
Yeah.
Well, in that event,
Chris, I think we're in danger of having more guests than the Christmas special.
That is true. That is true. Yeah. Yeah. Although a lot less liquor than the Christmas special. So that's excellent. Oh, hi. Name James. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Yeah. Cheers.
Thanks for having me on.
Take all comers.
My question was to build on something that Oliver said about, taking baby steps. I think one of the challenges is maybe with, the situation we may or may not be in with social media at the moment is that it was kind of like a silent killer for many, many years. And one of the challenges with baby steps is maybe that we don't actually see some of the dangers and the risks until they're too late. And so I was wondering, A, about that, and B, what does a world look like in which, we're already maybe breeding a generation of fairly passive citizens who are used to consuming from rectangles, and what does that look when we strip maybe even more agency away from people,
Yeah, and
make them even more passive?
That's that whole sleepwalking thing that we've talked about before.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I mean, there's a fair amount of sleepwalking going on, but no, I love it. And joy of live is we can't edit this bit out where I have a brain fart moment. But anyway.
We'll edit it out in the other one. Yeah, the one that ends up on the YouTube channel. Yeah.
Sorry, I've just had a complete blank with
Whynde,
James
thoughts?
asked.
Just a quick thought while you're thinking. We're talking about that like that's inevitable. We're like stripping agency away from people. I think and I get that at the micro level and the organizational level, but at our organizations and our societies, like us as collective people, I think we need to think much harder about how we turn this into a time of collective human thriving. Like it seems to me that's what we should be focused on instead of just saying this is already going to happen.
Yeah, and so practically for people, right? I think it comes down to using these tools. I think, Phil, you would say maybe with intentionality or with a deliberate approach to using these particular tools, but like thinking ahead of time how I intend to use these and for what purpose, and be thoughtful about the questions that you ask, so that you don't end up getting an shitified answer back from one of these tools.
I think the organic brain has now kicked back in again. I can remember what I was going to say. I mean, the social media thing is really interesting, isn't it? Like the harms. And the thing I think we need to remember is that this is ultimately kind of a lab experiment that went viral, right? And that's the thing. I mean, like, OpenAI never thought that this was going to go away. It did. And I went to an amazing Royal Society event with university professors and so on, including the likes of Gary Marcus, who I know is a bit of a Marmite character. But it's really interesting to sort of look at like the experiment we are effectively doing on our citizens, on our customers, and so on and so forth by using some of this technology. And the feedback loops, I think, are really, really important to like collect the telemetry, figure out where this is working, where it isn't, and act sort of decisively on it.
Excellent. Well, appreciate it, James. Thank you so much. I'll just have two microphones, I suppose. Or, I don't know. We'll just put that right there. Well, listen. There's Daryl Carr. It's fantastic. What time is it in Australia, Daryl? Wherever you are, it's probably dark. Anyway. So anyway, listen. Again, we have never really done this live before like this. We're in a time box 30-minute window. Without a significant ability to edit out things that
I forget
things that we forget, or exactly. But this I think went fairly well. So again, I think we've had a really good conversation about being intentional about thinking through the context piece of this and understanding that these are tools to help us with some things. But if we don't use them in the right way, we're not going to get the answers out of them and the value out of them that we want. And I think that that's valuable for individuals as well as enterprises. But if you're interested, our podcast is Consultants Saying Things. It's a YouTube channel at Consultants Saying Things, consultantsayingthings.com. It's also up on LinkedIn pretty much all the time, or you can find it through one of us, which I think is really interesting. And we've been at it for a bit now, right? Yeah.
This lineup, I looked up next month, within 5 years on the podcast.
Of the four of us.
Four of us, yeah.
That's fantastic. And of course, it predates that by a little bit with some other folks, but this is really good. So listen, I appreciate it. Phil Yanov, glad to see you down there. We'll get you big head next time up on the screen.
Nice.
Oliver Cronk, Whynde, Kuehn. I'm Chris Lockhart. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see everyone on the next episode.
Thanks, guys.